Award-winning TV presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
Mauritania's president, Manar Ahmed Al-Taya, announces that his troops succeeded in putting down a coup attempt, led by a number of military officers.
In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. With God's help, the situation is now under control. Some military officers attempted a coup. They took over a convoy of tanks, so we needed some time to fight off this aggression. It was necessary to destroy each tank.
The U.S. President George Bush declares that he is optimistic regarding peace in the Middle East, despite the most recent martyrdom attacks. Mahmoud Abbas announces that he will present the Palestinian Legislative Council with his notes from the Aqaba speech, where he promised to curb the militarization of the resistance, reiterating that he wants to continue negotiations with the Palestinian resistance factions.
The Palestinian Prime Minister missed some points in his speech at the Aqaba summit. However, they were mentioned during his press conference in Ramallah. Abu Mazen stressed the Palestinian national demands, insisting on his political agenda, and continuing the national negotiations with the Palestinian opposition, who in turn refused questioning their intentions. However, they welcomed the idea of the talks.
The Israeli army begins to dismantle a number of random settlements in the West Bank, in accordance to the roadmap. This is the end of the news in brief.
Welcome. In Mauritania, several military officers failed an attempted coup against President Muawiyah Weld Said Ahmed Al-Taya. President Muawiyah appeared on Mauritanian TV announcing that the coup was put down by his loyal troops. The president's allies celebrated his victory. However, this incident raises many questions regarding Mauritania's future. This is a country where the military is divided and the opposition is oppressed. Meanwhile, the people are preoccupied with their difficult lives and the government is not solving their problems. President Muawiyah Weld Said Ahmed Al-Taya was victorious over the rebels. However, he did not regain full control of the situation. At least, this is how it appeared when he personally addressed the Mauritanian people. His speech was broadcasted on the television stations after being off the air for 2 days. The Mauritanian president seemed ill and nervous while announcing that his troops have put down the attempted coup. He is facing his first real challenge since claiming power through a coup in 1984.
With God's help, the situation is now under control. Several military officers attempted a coup and took over a convoy of tanks. We needed some time to fight this aggression because it was necessary to destroy each tank one by one. And we were able to do that.
The evidence of President Muawiyah's victory became apparent in the early hours of the day when his loyal troops were able to put down the remaining resistant pockets in the capital, Nouakchott, and regained control of the presidential palace. There were reports that the rebels put the president's allied troops in a difficult position. They intensified their attacks during the night and were able to get control of some governmental installations, including the presidential palace. However, the reinforcement that was sent to the allied troops via a road in the desert changed the situation in favor of President Muawiyah. The general opinion is that President Muawiyah's authority has been shaken. Thus, it is expected that in the coming days he will rule with an iron fist until the situation is completely under control. Furthermore, the Mauritanian president will interrogate the rebels who are now under arrest in an effort to know his real enemies and their goals. There is no doubt that this attempted coup is linked to the recent political tensions following the campaign waged against the Islamists and the political figures that are described as Ba'athis, in addition to having ties to the former Iraqi president Saddam Hussein. Moreover, there is a general discontent, especially among the opposition, with the President Muawiya's relations with Israel. Nevertheless, the opposition says that President Muawiya will wage a search campaign in the army to eliminate all the disloyal members. But some analysts believe that this step may ruin his political future because it increases the tensions in Mauritania at a time where President Muawiya is trying to win a third presidential term in the coming November elections.
In Hebron, another military operation took place, killing one Israeli. What is unique about the operation is the fact that Hamas, Jihad, and the military wing of Fatah have jointly declared responsibility. This makes Abu Mazen's promises harder to fulfill. In the wake of the mounting anger of the Palestinian population and the rejection by 5 major Palestinian factions to the Aqaba summit, it appears that resistance has returned to its fierce nature. The crooks who are engaged in diplomacy are not helpful to Abu Mazen's government. Rather, their efforts became a crime which Abu Mazen tried to refute during a press conference in Ramallah. When President Arafat appeared angry about the results of the summit and described Sharon as a mass murderer, the dreams of the liberals were shattered. Sources from the occupation forces said that Sharon is not going to expel Arafat from his country because that would be more damaging to Israel. The leader of the occupation forces in Gaza said that the latest suicide operation at the Arez checkpoint in Gaza is an unprecedented operation because it was carried out by 3 young men in their early 20s from 3 different organizations. The 3 men dressed in Israeli army fatigues, who were from Fatah, Hamas, and Jihad organizations, managed to penetrate a military base near the Arez checkpoint, even though it was one of the most guarded bases in Israel and probably in the Middle East. They confronted the occupation forces at a very close distance, killing 4 and injuring 4 others before they were martyred. Officials in Tel Aviv said that the objective of the operation was to kidnap the soldiers and take them to the Gaza Strip. From Sharon's office, Baznar said that Abu Mazen and Mohammed Dalan must work to stop such operations so the roadmap can be implemented.
We are expecting now that the Palestinian Authority
We are now expecting the Palestinian Authority to spend 100% of their efforts to control terrorism. We encourage them to do so. Everybody must understand that the continuation of terrorism impedes the peace process.
The defense minister of the occupation forces, Shalom Mufaz, reimposed a tight curfew on the Palestinian lands. Generals from the occupation forces accused Arafat of participating with Hamas and Jihad to escalate the military operations. In addition, some right-wing parties demanded that Ariel Sharon cut ties with the Palestinian Authority, but the declarations made by the U.S. National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice and the White House forced Tel Aviv to reconsider. Tel Aviv now says the military operation in Arez will not affect the peace process. This happened despite the insubordination of the Likud party, which opposes the roadmap and the establishment of an independent Palestinian state. On the other hand, a Palestinian minister, whose name was not mentioned, said that the objective of the operation that targeted Arez is to test the power of Abu Mazen and Mohammed Dalan.
Meaning of that is we are all in the trench of resistance.
We are against surrendering to Israeli aggression. All of us are saying that the Intifada will continue despite the Al-Aqaba and Sharm el-Sheikh summits.
On the other hand, Abu Mazen and Mohammed Dalan fired the head of the security agency in the West Bank, and they appointed General al-Ray in his place. hoping that the new security agency would be successful in maintaining security in the West Bank. The Palestinian Prime Minister, Abu Mazen, tried to explain the position he took in a speech that he gave at the Aqaba summit.
More than once we declared that these negotiations are taking place. We still insist on the principles that speak to the future. Nothing has changed at all. The ball is in their court. If they want to continue with the talks, we do not mind that.
However, the unfolding events suggest the opposite. The Palestinians carried out a shooting operation in Hebron, injuring one of the guards. They also detonated a large explosive device under a military personnel carrier at Bet Lahoun. This makes the possibility of achieving successful peace talks as likely as growing bananas in Alaska. Nasrallah, NBN, Occupied Jerusalem.
Hezbollah Secretary General Said Hassan Nasrallah said that any assistance or banking on U.S. projects set for the region is a step that weakens the nation. In a speech he gave during a rally marking the anniversary of the abduction of Abu Ali al-Dirani by Israel, Nasrallah asked about the vows the U.S. leaders took on themselves before occupying Iraq to carry out negotiations and secure an interim government, democracy, and freedom in Iraq.
فصائل المقاومة في فلسطين والشعب الفلسطيني كله شعروا بالإهانة لما سمعوه في شرم الشيخ وشعروا بالإهانة العظمى لما سمعوه في العقبة. ولذلك نعم ارتفعت الأصوات، أصوات فصائل فلسطينية وشعب فلسطيني، لأن لا تقبل هذه الإهانة. وعبرت اليوم أيضا عن غضبها من خلال العمليات الجهادية المشتركة التي سقط فيها شهداء من عدة فصائل يمني الإسرائيلي والأمريكي النفس أن تتقاتل هذه الفصائل فيما بينها كرمة لعيون الإسرائيليين، فإذا بها تتوحد لتقاتل الإسرائيليين وليسفك دم الشهداء ولينزف دم الشهداء من ثلاثة فصائل فلسطينية كأعمق وأجمل وأقوى تعبير عن إرادة الفلسطينيين في وحدتهم الوطنية المتمحورة حول المقاومة، الذين يساعدون اليوم على تنفيذ خارطة الطريق هم يساعدون على إنقاذ إسرائيل وليس على إنقاذ الشعب الفلسطيني. هم يعملون حرس حدود لحماية إسرائيل وليس حماة للشعب الفلسطيني. وكذلك الذين يستسلمون في هذه المرحلة للإرادة الأمريكية والذين يرتعبون بفعل التهديدات والتهويلات الأمريكية هم يضيعون أمتهم في وسط هذه المرحلة التاريخية. بمعزل عن اللبناني والسوري والأردني، يعني اللبنانيين والعرب اللي عددهم صغير ومع ذلك يوجد بعض التعقيدات لا داعي لذكرها الآن، لكن لما جينا الموضوع الفلسطيني بالأول ما في فلسطيني، بعدين طيب فيه، بلشنا من 25 فلسطيني، آخر مرة التقينا فيها نحن والوسطاء 220. ولما أخذنا الأسرى الإسرائيليين كان في 1500 معتقل فلسطيني في السجون، الآن قديش في؟ 8000 معتقل فلسطيني. يعني عنده 8000 معتقل فلسطيني، ومع ذلك هو لا يبدي استعدادا لإطلاق سراح أكثر من 220 أو 250 فلسطيني في إطار صفقة تشمل الأسرى الأربعة. والأسوأ من هذا مش العدد، إنه حتى ال 220 هو بسميهم. بالتأكيد لا أحد يمكن أن يقبل بطرح من هذا القبيل أو بصيغة من هذا القبيل. أن الإسرائيلي إذا كان يراهن على صبرنا، على ثباتنا، على عواطفنا مما يجعلنا نقبل بمعالجة أو بتسوية خاسرة وغير مناسبة على المستوى الإنساني هو رهان خاطئ، وإنما من خلال ذلك لن يستفيد سوى تعذيب عائلات الأسرى الإسرائيليين، ولا يسأل عن عواطف ومشاعر عائلات المعتقلين اللبنانيين والفلسطينيين وغيرهم.
Meanwhile, the United States continued its accusations against Iran, claiming it is breaching the Non-Proliferation Treaty, despite the International Atomic Energy Agency IAEA report that dismissed Iran's development and possession of nuclear weapons. Washington's accusations came in course of a U.S. psychological campaign against Tehran, which the Iranian government has rejected. And Iranian Foreign Minister Kamal Kharazi slammed these accusations as mere U.S. claims, adding that Iran does not plan to possess nuclear weapons. Iranian officials said Tehran is practicing its natural right in benefiting from nuclear technology, adding that Washington is trying to create problems with Tehran, disregarding the nuclear program in Israel that refuses to commit itself to any non-proliferation treaty. Another U.S. soldier was killed late Sunday near the border with Syria, while U.S. troops detained 2 Iraqis after coming under fire Sunday in the hotspot town of Fallujah, west of Baghdad. More in this report.
The killing of U.S. soldiers in occupied Iraq has become a nearly daily occurrence. The U.S. Central Command announced Monday that a U.S. soldier was killed a day earlier by gunfire at a checkpoint in the western town of Al-Qaim near the Syrian border, raising the number of killed U.S. soldiers in Iraq since May the 1st to 29. The U.S. occupation troops said in a statement an undetermined number of assailants pulled up to the checkpoint in a vehicle and requested help for a sick person in the car. 2 people armed with pistols then exited the vehicle and shot dead the soldier. U.S. troops returned fire, killing one of the attackers and captured another, but at least 1 other assailant managed to escape in their car. In another statement, the CENTCOM said its troops came under attack for the 2nd time in as many days from armed men from inside the mosque in Fallujah to the west of Baghdad, and that its task force conducted Sunday aggressive patrols in the area to gain contact with what it called enemy forces and had so far detained 2 individuals. On Monday morning, U.S. soldiers resumed their search of the area enforced by 1,000 extra troops last week. CENTCOM, however, made no mention of a shooting the U.S. troops made Sunday. Residents said during the aggressive patrols, U.S. troops killed an Iraqi gun shop owner as he repaired a Kalashnikov outside his store. Residents also said that U.S. troops are threatening the residents of house demolitions.
At 1 o'clock in the morning, the Americans began to shoot at the building where innocent families were living, about 50 families. They asked the people to leave the building so they could destroy it. An Iraqi man told them in English he was responsible for the building, and so they left. Is this fair?
Palestinian Prime Minister Mahmoud Abbas denounced new attacks by Palestinian gunmen on Israeli soldiers. Yesterday's attacks in Gaza and Hebron, in which 5 Israeli soldiers were killed, has prompted Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon to halt any move he pledged to take to implement the US-backed roadmap to peace with the Palestinians. Sharon demanded that Abbas crack down on militant groups and disarm them, but Abbas has preferred the path of negotiation to avoid sparking civil war. Abbas, at a news conference in the West Bank city of Ramallah, called on the Palestinian factions to stop attacks on the Israelis to enable the sides to begin a political process. But he said that he would not force anyone to resume dialogue. He called on Israel to release Palestinian prisoners and to ease the suffering caused by closures of West Bank towns and villages. He also condemned a security fence which Israel is building to seal off the West Bank. Abbas appealed to U.S. President George W. Bush to complete what he started in Sharm el-Sheikh and Aqaba. Hamas, which pulled out of ceasefire talks with Abbas on Friday, said it was considering Abbas's new statements.
We are studying now this speech, and there will be a reaction from Hamas But you shouldn't forget that our conflict with the occupiers.
Meanwhile, U.S. President George W. Bush denounced Hamas and other Palestinian groups as extremists who wanted to blow up peace in the Middle East, but said he was still hopeful of making progress. Bush was speaking to reporters after briefing his cabinet on his meeting with Abbas and Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon in Aqaba. He said he is optimistic that responsible leaders have now got the message that all must combine to work to fight off what he called the terror attacks so that a peaceful Palestinian state can emerge. Bush said he was encouraged by seeing firsthand the willingness of Abbas and Sharon to work together.
The average Palestinian must understand that their lives will improve with the vision of Prime Minister Abbas. And the Arab neighborhood understands that violence will lead to nothing except misery and the lack of hope. And so I'm optimistic that responsible leaders have now got the message that we must combine to work to fight off the terror attacks so that a peaceful Palestinian state can emerge. And as I understand, there's going to be a lot of work to do, but I'm prepared to lead.
The State Security Court's General Prosecutor has issued the indictment list against Majd Sami Mohammed Shamaile, main suspect in what is called bank facilities. The charges enlisted against the Shamaile and others include fraudulence, forgery, and using a false stamp of a public department. The court will start its hearings within a week. Meanwhile, two suspects in the case, namely Samih al-Battihi and Zuhair Zannouna, will be tried by a military court. The trial will begin on Wednesday. A U.S. soldier has been killed in Iraq by small arms fire while manning a traffic control checkpoint at Al-Qaim on the Syrian border. The U.S. military said a number of attackers pulled up at the checkpoint late yesterday in a vehicle and asked for help for a person in the car they said was ill. It said two people armed with pistols got out and shot the soldier. It added soldiers at the checkpoint returned fire, killing one assailant and capturing a second. At least one other assailant fled in the vehicle. Meanwhile, an International Atomic Energy Agency IAEA team continued a second day of inspections at a complex in the vast Tuwaitha Nuclear Agency compound, 20 kilometers south of Baghdad. The 7-member IAEA team was working under tight U.S. military escort at the site. On the other hand, the U.S. appointed chief executive of Iraq's oil sector said Iraq will be ready to produce and export oil by the end of the month. Iraqi oil fields are now pumping around 200,000 barrels per day versus a pre-war rate of 2.5 million barrels.
As far as the resumption of export, we have said before that we have about 8 million barrels at the tank farm in Jihan, and we are processing, contracts now with various interested parties, and we hope that during the third week of this month, the first shipment will be made available to the international market.
Iranian President Mohammad Khatami, during his tour to the northeastern province of Khorasan on Monday, inaugurated the country's biggest industrial project, the assembly line of Georgian alumina, which puts Iran in the group of alumina-producing countries in the world.
Georgian plant has been designed to annually produce 280,000 tons of alumina powder, the main substance used in alumina production. Also on Monday, a 39-kilometer freeway linking the provincial capital city of Mashhad to Baghche, another town in Khorasan province, besides the project of supplying gas to southern cities of Khorasan province, were put into service in presence of President Khatami. Addressing a huge gathering of residents in town of Bojnud, Mr. Khatami called the current Iranian year as a year for inauguration of great industrial, developmental, agricultural, oil and petrochemical projects. President Khatami then referred to the country's 6.5% economic growth, as well as the creation of 6,590 job opportunities in the past Iranian year, and said those two fields will see further increase in the current year. The Iranian president concluded by asserting under the current circumstances that enemies are working out schemes to take control of the country. The nation is in need of unity and solidarity more than ever before. In the town of Sabzevar, meanwhile, in an audience with the townspeople, Mr. Khatami honored the memory of Sabzevar's religious figures and scientists. He also pointed out that by the end of the current Iranian year, 2 medium-sized dams in the province will become operational and 4 other dams will reach water reserving stage. And in his 2-day tour to Khorasan province, President Khatami returned to Tehran Monday afternoon.
Iran's envoy to the International Atomic Energy Agency, Ali Akbar Salehi, says the draft of the IAEA report on Iran's nuclear activities is a common issue and cannot serve as a basis for accusing other countries of breaching the IAEA regulations. Elaborating on the issue, Mr. Salehi said, under the Article 95 of the IAEA's treaty, those countries which import less than 1,000 grams of radioactive materials are not obliged to inform the IAEA of the issue, while, as the IAEA official declared, Iran has imported only 130 grams of the material some 12 years ago. Mr. Salehi reaffirmed that Iran has had no hidden nuclear activities and that it has partially utilized the imported radioactive material in research sector, and the remaining has frequently been inspected by the IAEA inspectors.
Mix and match. That is what mechanics in Kinshasa do, as they use multicultural spares to keep cars on the road. More in the following reports.
It's rush hour in Kinshasa, the capital of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Most people would associate rush hour with sitting in a traffic jam going nowhere. But for most of Kinshasa's 6 million inhabitants, it means rushing to catch a car because there just isn't enough transport for everyone to get a ride. In a town with virtually no public transport, where commuters are at the mercy of private operators, many dream of owning their own vehicle. For about $1,000, this dream can become reality, but driving there is an adventure even in your car. Everyone will want a ride, and when you choose your model, don't trust what you see. It's quite possible that its body came from one place, and the bits inside could have come from another. Chuba is a mechanic from a populous Kinshasa neighborhood that's renowned for its auto mechanics. He says that he can repair anything and can adapt any car. An official from the Ministry of Transport complains that there are many cars that don't comply with the rules, that drive without a motor vehicle inspection certificate, without a road license, sometimes even without being registered at all. It would be interesting to see what the motor vehicle inspection would make of this model. Easy to refuel en route thanks to its removable petrol tank. If the petrol tank is full, but the car still doesn't start afterwards, that's not a problem. There is always plenty of people around to get it going again.
Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, which promotes journalism excellence worldwide and invests in the vitality of 26 U.S. communities, and the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation,